Welcome to Retirement Perspectives with Bob Horn. If your retirement picture is blurry, Bob and the team at NuVenture Financial Group can help you put your retirement into focus. Bob strives to understand all of your financial needs to help guide you on the path to your retirement goals. This is Retirement Perspectives with Bob Horn.
Only 25% of Americans say that they have a written financial plan. That means most of us don't have a specific financial plan. So how can you get a plan in place? Well, Bob Horn of NuVenture Financial Group walks us through his process for helping you create a comprehensive plan for your retirement. Bob, it's great to be back with you again today.
Good to see you again.
I'm super excited about today's show because there's a lot to get into. This is a really significant topic because, as I mentioned, only about 25% of Americans say they have a written financial plan, which means most of us don't have a specific financial plan. I'm guessing a lot of us probably aren't even sure what goes into an income plan or a retirement plan. So let's walk through this process a little bit. Can you explain, by helping us build an overall retirement plan, where do you start retirees? When they come into your office, where do you start them?
So it's really interesting. So when you come into our office, each one of our conference rooms, and we have a visual, and we call it the components of the comprehensive retirement plan. So think of like a hub with a bunch of spokes around it. And so at the hub is your retirement planner, that's us. But there's a lot of different things that go into that comprehensive retirement plan. So the first thing that we go into is investments. We have to do investment planning. 3 different categories of investments. We break that down at our workshops and also in the office. 3 different ways you can invest your money, if you will. And so we go through the pros and cons of each. But as we kind of go around that whole wheel, if you will, we talk about Social Security planning as well. Should we defer? Should we take now? What about spousal benefits? All this kind of good stuff. We also talk a lot about health insurance, healthcare, and Medicare. All the advisors at my office were all certified to be able to help people pre-65 if they need health insurance. If you retire before 65, you can't get Medicare yet typically. And then after 65, you need Medicare planning. So we want to make sure we kind of go through those processes as well. That's a really important part of retirement planning. And I often tease folks when they come into my office, look, if I'm going to call myself a retirement planner, and I know if you're retired, you're going to need health insurance or Medicare, then might you think I ought to be able to offer you those things? Sure, of course. So go through that. We also go through lots of different tax planning. We had a whole show on this that we talked about. So tax planning is really important. There are ways to efficiently potentially minimize taxes, for the long term. So we go through that planning as well. And then the last thing is the estate plan and legacy planning. So again, we're not attorneys, so we can't give you all the answers you may need in an estate planning, but we can have those conversations and how they integrate really well in that comprehensive retirement plan. I will say the last thing is this. It all culminates with the income plan. Everything's built around that income. That's the foundation of where we start. Everything else revolves around that solid income plan. I want the families that I work with to know that if all else fails and the market goes down and does what it does, we have a really good foundation of income. And that's where it all starts. And when somebody finishes up their planning with us, they all get a guide, a binder with all those things tabbed out in there to show them that we've addressed them all.
I love that. I love that you're going over the entire retirement plan. I think it's a very significant piece that we have to talk about. I want to go through each of the pieces of the retirement plan because I think it's easy for many people to overlook the foundational piece. You mentioned income, right? Yep. Let's talk about what goes into an income plan.
Yeah, so this is an important one. So we talk about the different types of income that go, of sure income in retirement. So Social Security, and hopefully you may have a pension, although we're seeing a lot of them where those go away. So we'll have a deep dive into Social Security. When we should take it, should we defer? Should one of the spouses take it early, one defer? We'll go through those concepts. And then the pension discussion, should we take the pension, the monthly income, or sometimes you can take a lump sum. Should we do that instead? Then we kind of do a budget and expense analysis. As I joked earlier on one of other shows, I don't really care to do a budget because I don't really care.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, I don't want to talk about my budget. I want to spend as much as I can.
Right. I don't care what you're spending the money on. I just want to make sure you have enough to do it, right?
Exactly.
And so we go through that exercise and make sure we've hit that target in your income plan. And then some of the other things we talk about is longevity planning. How long are we going to need to have this income for and adjust it for inflation over time? The last thing I'll say about income, which is really one of the main components of it we have to address, is what they call sequence of returns risk. And so when you begin taking money out of a portfolio, if the market goes down early on in that sequence and we're taking money out, it can really start snowballing, and we may potentially put us in a position in the future where we don't have enough money left to continue that income. So we want to make sure that we address it on the front end versus getting surprised by it.
Now, I know income is just a piece of an overall retirement plan. It's not, the main ingredient. It is the main ingredient, but there's other pieces that we have to factor in. And so after the income plan is established, what's next?
That would be the investment plan. And so the way I always describe this, I'm a football guy, I played a lot of football in my younger days. The way I kind of describe the investment planning is like owning an NFL football team. And so I tell my clients, you guys own the NFL team. It's your money, you make all the calls. But what you may have discovered is that just because you own the team, you may not be the best person to coach the team. That's me. Okay. So you hire a coach, and I sit on the sideline, and my job is to wear the headset and manage the game. I'm gonna manage the clock, manage the players, pull them in and out of the game, that kind of thing, and call the right plays. And I have to be held accountable for how many wins we have versus losses. What I'm not going to do is be the quarterback on the field making the plays. I'm watching them and watching what they're doing, but I can pull them out and put them in. So it's like a football team, if you will.
I love that analogy. We're going to dive into this a little bit more after the break. So the reality is that most of us don't have a written financial plan for retirement. It sounds intimidating, but Bob is making it simple for us today by breaking down what the process looks like right after this. Stay tuned.
Planning for retirement can be complicated. Helping create income that lasts, making sure your health care is covered, investing while managing risk, and don't forget about taxes. If you're overwhelmed, you're not alone. The good news is we have what you need to give you confidence to start planning for your ideal retirement, all in one convenient resource. You'll get answers to some of your biggest retirement questions in this easy-to-understand, practical resource. And best of all, there's no cost to you. Take the first step toward a confident retirement and get yours today.
When it comes to planning for the future, time may not always be on your side. Think about your taxes. Tax rates are historically low right now, but they'll likely be higher in the future. Our current tax rates are set to expire in just a few short years. With the right planning and strategy, you might be able to cut your tax bill in the years to come. But don't wait until it's too late to take advantage of today's lower tax rates. Let us be your partner in planning for tomorrow so you can enjoy your retirement today.
Thanks for joining us today. We're talking today about creating a comprehensive retirement plan and how creating an income plan can sound complicated and confusing. But Bob Horn of NuVenture Financial Group is here. He's making it all simple for us by walking us through his team's process. Now, earlier we were talking about the idea of creating an income plan and how that fits into an overall comprehensive retirement plan. Now let's talk about the tax planning step of the entire process.
Yeah, so we provide a lot of value here. So now we kind of switch gears from the income going into the tax mitigation strategies, if you will. So the first thing we do is we want to assess the tax treatment of your retirement assets. How much do you have in your pre-tax 401k or your IRA? How much do you have in a Roth, if anything? How much do you have in your taxable assets? So we want to assess kind of what's where, and then also have a game plan moving forward on if we can start moving some money around a little bit. So we want to explore the options for those tax-deferred and tax-free accounts. It's not just paying taxes now. There's a lot of ways using investment vehicles that we can help with taxes as well. So we talk through those strategies. Also, there's going to be certain withdrawal strategies that will help lower your tax burden. So as we advance the retirement years, hopefully we're moving some more money into Roth IRAs or other vehicles like that are tax-free. When we need the income from it, now we have the option of taking income from a Roth IRA, which is tax-free. It doesn't even hit your tax return. Maybe we take it all out of an IRA, which is taxable if we're lower than a tax bracket. Maybe we have a little bit of both. So we'll assess the withdrawal strategy to try to maximize or help to maximize those taxes. And then the last thing is we want to leverage your qualified money to leave it to as tax-free as possible to your beneficiaries. So again, using Roth IRAs and properly structured life insurance that will help potentially leave tax-free legacy to your children, to your beneficiaries.
You said tax-free. I want to know a little bit more about that. So that sounds really nice in retirement, right? Anything that's tax-free. When it comes to planning for retirement, there's also a piece that some people try to overlook that we can't overlook. That's healthcare cost, right? So how does that fit into your overall process?
So a lot of people we work with are concerned about the rising healthcare costs and long-term care, and long-term care insurance too. And so we talk a lot about this, and this is more in those latter parts of your retirement when those costs can start to rise. So the first thing is we want to analyze your options for long-term care. That could be the facility you're going into, whether it's an adjusted system that you go into. Starts with assisted living and can maybe go through up to nursing care. What are the costs of that? We have to kind of go through that. How do we pay for that is another situation. So long-term care insurance. There's actually a lot of life insurance concepts now that'll help minimize some of the costs for that. And maybe sometimes you can just self-fund it. So there's times in my office where folks have enough money where they can just self-fund long-term care. Then we also go into Medicare options. Believe it or not, a minute ago we talked about taxes. Well, depending on what happens with your taxes, it can also affect your Medicare. We'll go through all those strategies and those options for your Medicare planning. And then the last thing we talk about is dental, vision, and hearing. There are some Medicare plans that don't even offer those things, and that's okay, but we have to go get those somewhere else through a private plan, that kind of thing. All of the advisors in my office can walk you through these situations.
Bob, it sounds like there's a lot of things to consider when it comes to retirement planning. So we definitely want to encourage retirees, make sure you get a financial advisor with you to make sure you're not overlooking anything. Another piece that we don't want to overlook is how to leave an inheritance to your loved ones. I'm sure you get this question all the time in retirement. How do you walk people through this process?
Well, so this is really important. So we do these annual reviews, and we talked about it before. We call them ASTs, Annual Strategy and Tactical Meetings. And one of the big components of that is making sure that we look at the beneficiaries. There's been times that I've had clients that we've brought on into our firm, and we bring their accounts over only to find out there was no beneficiaries on their account. So if they passed away, it goes to probate. It's, believe it or not. And so one of the things we do annually is we check to make sure that the beneficiaries are who they're supposed to be and the percentages are correct too. That's an easy one, the beneficiaries. As you go more into the advanced levels of estate planning, that's where an estate planning attorney is going to really kind of help you out to preserve assets potentially in a trust and to make sure that they distribute to your beneficiaries probate free. That's the ultimate goal with estate planning, is to be very, very efficient and have you make the decisions on where your money is going, not anybody else. We also want to prevent your IRA or other qualified accounts that are fully taxable to go to your beneficiaries upon your death, because they're going to be taxable to them. We have this thing called the Secure Act that was passed a few years ago, which essentially means that if your kids are a beneficiary, it's not your spouse, right, get your pre-tax accounts, they have 10 years to get all the money out of the account, and they're taxed on it, potentially at higher tax rates. So we want to make sure we kind of minimize that and try to get those taxes paid ahead of time so your heirs don't have to down the road.
It seems like too, when it comes to that scenario, you got to make sure you're doing it a certain way. So I would definitely encourage you to get a financial advisor to make sure no money's left on the table, right? We don't want anything to be left behind. So really good insights there, Bob. Now, straight ahead, Bob shares top signs that you might need a new advisor for your retirement. And still to come, Bob answers some of your questions. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
How does your future look in retirement? When you don't have a strategy, the future might look a little fuzzy. But with someone asking the right questions and helping you learn where you truly stand, it can become easier to work towards your goals. You need a plan to help generate income that will last as long as you need it. And the first step to creating an income plan is an analysis of where you are now. Let us help you bring your retirement into focus with your free income analysis today.
Planning for retirement can be complicated. Helping create income that lasts, making sure your health care is covered, investing while managing risk, and don't forget about taxes. If you're overwhelmed, you're not alone. The good news is we have what you need to give you confidence to start planning for your ideal retirement, all in one convenient resource. You'll get answers to some of your biggest retirement questions in this easy-to-understand, practical resource. And best of all, there's no cost to you. Take the first step toward a confident retirement and get yours today.
sometimes the person who helped you get to retirement might not be the right person to help you guide you through retirement. Well, Bob breaks it down in this week's Retirement in Focus. Bob?
Thanks a lot, Danielle. I really appreciate that. So in today's Retirement in Focus segment, we're going to talk about signs you need to potentially look for a new advisor. So many times in the workshops we do around town, a lot of times I'll have somebody raise their hand and say, hey, Bob, how do I look at potentially transitioning from my old advisor to a new advisor? What are some of the signs I need to be looking at? And so we kind of bullet point that out. We'll talk about some of those points today. So the first thing you want to look at, the question you want to ask yourself is, if your current advisor only calls you when they want to make trades on your account, that may be a sign that you're working with a salesperson and not an actual retirement planner. So there are many times in our office where folks will come in for what we call a focus meeting throughout the year. They may be in there for 2 or 3 times during the year doing these focus meetings, and will focus on their investment strategies. Not because we're selling something, but because the strategy has shifted a little bit. So we do those focus meetings. So watch if your retirement planner or your financial advisor is calling you to make trades and you only get that call to make a trade, that could be a sign you're working with a salesperson. The second one is that your financial situation is changing, but the advice isn't. So we talk a lot about retirement. You know, preceding retirement, running up to that point, you may be working with a financial advisor. And arguably, they've done a really good job for the last 10 or 15 years, working your way up to that situation. But they don't talk to you about all the things that are going to be in retirement: income planning, taxes, estate planning, all those things. And so in retirement, that paradigm shifts. And so you want to work with a retirement planner that can talk to you about all the things that are going to be going on in your retirement. It's not just about your investments. There's a lot of different things that are going on in your retirement. The third thing, my advisor doesn't listen to me, or my advisor doesn't listen to my spouse. There's 3 and 4 things there. So our entire first meeting, we call it the picture day. And the reason why we call it the picture day is because what we're going to do is take time during your first visit and really get to know you and ask you lots of questions. The entire first meeting is just put on getting to know you a lot better. And so, and we're answering questions as well. The important thing to know is that we look at both spouses, if you're married, to make sure that we're addressing the questions and getting the information that you're going to need. There's an emotional side to this, but there's also a logical side. And we want to make sure that we do the best job answering the questions on both those things. And so when you come into our office, we're going to address those typically in our first meeting. But if your advisor is not speaking to you in that manner and hitting both of those situations, emotional and logic, may be signs that you might need a new advisor. And then the last thing is, you dread calling them with questions. Now this is kind of twofold. So what I hear oftentimes is that my advisor, they're using all this terminology that's really confusing and all these different concepts. I don't understand it. So at our office, we like to keep it simple, for sure. We can go over very high, technically high informational situations, but we can use simple strategies to kind of address those and explain them to people. So you don't want to work with an advisor that's going to confuse you with all the different things that they can confuse you with. Work with somebody that's very, very simple. And the second thing is, we often tell people to work with an advisor or a retirement planner that has a good team in place. In my office, we have a lot of people from operations to marketing to the client experience, behind the scenes office management. The team is in place there for me. So if I'm not in town or I'm sick, somebody's always going to be there to answer your questions. No matter if it's a technical question from an investment strategy or just a operational question, customer service question, somebody's always going to be there. So I always recommend working with an advisor or a retirement planner that has a really solid team in place. So all those things. In summary, again, number one, if your advisor is only calling you to make trades, could be a sign you're working with a salesperson. Number two, your financial situation is changing, but your advisor's advice is not. Again, are you working with a financial advisor or are you working with a retirement planner? Big deal there. Also, make sure that you're working with an advisor that's hearing everything you have to say, whether it's an emotional aspect or whether it's a logical aspect. You're working with an advisor that can really speak to those points. And then the last thing, you want to make sure your advisor has a team in place that's there for you, even if they're not. And then the last thing is making sure you work with an advisor that can break down highly technical concepts in very simple terms. I love to use stories and I love to use analogies. If you come to my office, you're going to hear them all. And so work with an advisor that can keep those things very, very simple. So with that being said, hope you got some good value out of our segment today. Danielle, back to you.
Thanks, Bob. Well, coming up next, if you have questions about your retirement, stay tuned. Bob has the answers. We'll be right back.
When it comes to planning for the future, time may not always be on your side. Think about your taxes. Tax rates are historically low right now, but they'll likely be higher in the future. Our current tax rates are set to expire in just a few short years. With the right planning and strategy, you might be able to cut your tax bill in the years to come. But don't wait until it's too late to take advantage of today's lower tax rates. Let us be your partner in planning for tomorrow so you can enjoy your retirement today.
How does your future look in retirement? When you don't have a strategy, the future might look a little fuzzy. But with someone asking the right questions and helping you learn where you truly stand, it can become easier to work towards your goals. You need a plan to help generate income that will last as long as you need it. And the first step to creating an income plan is an analysis of where you are now. Let us help you bring your retirement into focus with your free income analysis today.
Welcome back into the show. It's time to get to some of your questions about retirement. Bob, are you ready?
I am. My favorite part.
I love this part. Okay, let's see. Our first question is from Marilyn in Fruit Cove. She says, my husband has been laid off after 27 years of factory work. We had a good amount of money saved in our emergency fund, so we didn't need to panic immediately. I think we're fine financially if he retires, but I don't think it will mentally be the right choice right now. So who should we talk to? Well, I got a guy.
Got a guy.
I got a guy.
So Marilyn, I'm sorry to hear that your husband was laid off after 27 years. I know that can be a blow sometimes, but I'm really glad that she's got money saved up in retirement accounts. So the first thing is to seek out the advice of a professional. I would definitely say a retirement planner versus a financial advisor, somebody that can kind of guide you in that retirement. And then what they'll do is just take a look at your overall assets, give you an income plan to see if it's reasonable for you to go ahead and just stay retired now that you've been laid off.
That's a really good insight there. Okay, let's get to our next question from Ron in Nocatee. He says that I inherited an IRA from my father a few months ago, but I have no idea what to do with it now. So where do I start?
So this is a really important one. We talk a lot about this. It is, so this legislation that passed a few years ago called the Secure Act of 2019, what it did was fundamentally change the way that you receive specifically pre-tax accounts, IRAs, from your parents. So anytime you pass assets to a non-spouse beneficiary, years ago before this legislation passed, your beneficiaries had their actuarial lifetime to take all those distributions. It was a very small amount, and it was a great planning strategy because we could typically offset those losses. Right. Now, with the implementation of the Secure Act, of course, the way they sell it to us, is that now if you receive an IRA from a parent or from somebody else, you have 10 years to extract all the money out of the account. And so if you read between the lines of the legislation, it's not really secure for you. It's a really secure thing for Congress. What they basically said is that a lot of people are passing away when they're in their 80s and 90s at arguably their highest net worth years, and they're passing their pre-tax accounts to their children who are usually in their 50s and 60s at their highest income years, paying the most in taxes. So what you have is this shift from the highest net worth people passing the most money to the people paying the most taxes, and they have to do it in 10 years. So I would highly recommend seeking out a retirement planner that understands the complexities of that to try to minimize that tax impact from those inherited funds for sure.
I can see how something could easily be overlooked here. So I agree with you. Definitely get some advice 100%. On that. So, okay, next question comes from Jason in San Marco. He says, is it wrong to not want to leave an inheritance to our kids? They seem to argue all the time over everything, even as adults, and nothing ever seems fair enough. Plus, we paid for braces, college, cars, and weddings. I feel like that should be enough. Okay, coming from a father perspective, can you understand this?
Ooh, this is a good one. So, and we actually get this more and more now than ever before. Many of the families that I work with say, look, you know, I want to spend my money. In fact, I once had somebody joke with me. A gentleman said, look, my goal is to bounce the last check that I ever write. You want to spend all the money, right? I thought it was pretty funny. We hear this more and more often. So, and that's ultimately my goal too, is I want the families that I work with, you've worked a long time for that money. You've raised kids and you've paid down mortgages and had the struggle years to get that money there. Go enjoy the money. I often say that the investment in your kids is bringing them up to productive members of society. If you've got that, you have invested in them. You have passed them something. So my whole point is go enjoy the money that you've spent or that you've earned. Now, if dividing the assets up amongst kids is a situation, then you might want to go seek an estate planning attorney and draw up a potential trust. If there's a family dynamic that's a little bit different or has some complexities to it, that's where a trust comes in, and you can actually leave money, that's whatever's left over, in that trust, and it can go to your kids in different ways, in different percentages. That's where that trust can really come in and help offset those complexities on what you want to do when you pass away.
That's right. You don't want to upset any kid or any child in your family. You want to make sure everybody gets a portion, however you see fits, right?
Well, you have to also be willing to have very difficult conversations, you know, and very poignant conversations with your kids as well, you know, so.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So thank you for that insight there. Okay, last question comes from Linda in Jacksonville Beach. She says, what are some good resources to help me learn more about options for Social Security?
Yeah, well, I will tell you, the internet is just wonderful for information. But like anything on the internet, there's going to be things that are really, really good information and things that are really horrible parts of information. So I always recommend working with a retirement planner that understands the Social Security concepts, when we should take it, when we should defer, that kind of thing. But a good conduit to learn more about Social Security is actually ssa.gov. SocialSecurityAdministration.gov. And there you can go actually download your Social Security statement. You create an account, download your Social Security statement. I'd also invite you to come to one of our educational, informational workshops. We hold them at libraries around town. We also do them at UNF and at FSCJ. And we talk a lot about Social Security strategies. So we can teach you more there at those workshops. That's what they're designed for.
I think it's another great opportunity to meet Bob and his team as well, so definitely take advantage of that. Well, that's all the questions we have for today, so if you have a question, submit it, and we may just answer it on a future show. And if you want to know ways on how to generate lifetime income, reduce your tax bill, and maintain your lifestyle in retirement, don't hesitate. Reach out now to start planning for your ideal retirement. For Bob and the team at NuVenture Financial Group, I'm Danielle Martin, wishing you a healthy and happy journey to and through retirement. Have a great day.